A 21-year-old mum named Mackenzie Anderson opens her phone and types out a post. She doesn't know it yet, but her predictions would come true. On the surface, Mackenzie had been trying to move forwards. She had a toddler to care for, a new boyfriend, and enjoyed a recent Christmas spent with her family. But beneath all of that was an escalating fear, and sadly, Mackenzie's worst fear would soon become a reality. By the way, this is Dark Case, and you can call me Jack. I bring you rare and unseen true crime cases, as well as other things that you may later regret knowing, with multiple uploads every single week. So if that sounds like your kind of thing, join the Dark Case family now by hitting subscribe and turning all notifications on. And now for today's silly little question: what's one app on your phone that you absolutely refuse to download and use? Let me know down in the comments. All of your support on Patreon and via channel memberships are so appreciated, and I really can't thank you enough. However, thank you. But now, on with the video. When Tyrone Thompson walked out of prison on March 9th, 2022, he was not supposed to go anywhere near Mackenzie Anderson. He had just served time for assaulting her, for intimidating her, and for destroying her property. A fresh apprehended domestic violence order, or an AVO, was put in place. This explicitly banned him from contacting Mackenzie, but that boundary didn't last even one day. As soon as the offender was released, court documents later stated he called Mackenzie, he said that he was coming for her, and he loved her. That same day, Mackenzie shared a post online, equal parts sarcastic and concerned. "I'm okay. My ex Tyrone just got out of jail for what he did to me, and is still being weird and harassing me. He couldn't last 24 hours. Still, when Mackenzie broke up with her new partner just a few days later, Tyrone seized the opening. Mackenzie answered one of his calls, and then by March the 19th, just 10 days after his release, Tyrone was back in her orbit. They started spending time together, they talked, drank and laughed. To outsiders, it might have looked like reconciliation, but Mackenzie wasn't safe. She began sending messages to DV advocacy groups. She asked about security doors. She asked for help installing cameras. She told friends that she was scared and that Tyrone had been weird and obsessed. Mackenzie had been strong before. She had left him. She had testified. She had spoken out. She once posted online, "How many more lives need to be lost for people to take DV seriously? The system well and truly failed you." This would be a horrifying case of foreshadowing. Tyrone Thompson knew how to worm his way back into Mackenzie's life, and he had no fear of frankly being unhinged. On March the 19th, he changed his Facebook profile picture to a photo of Mackenzie's young son, a child that wasn't even his. It was a move designed to provoke emotion, to remind Mackenzie of the family life that they once imagined. It was an attempt to manipulate her, and it appears that it worked. Once Mackenzie broke up with her boyfriend, over the next 6 days, Tyrone embedded himself back into her home and routine. But this wasn't a peaceful reunion, it was tense and disturbing. On March the 25th, they were drinking together with a friend in their Mayfield home, and that's when things escalated. Tyrone grabbed Mackenzie's phone, and he texted her now ex-boyfriend saying, "I'm bigger than you, lol." Mackenzie snapped, "Give me my phone back," and now she wanted him gone. Later that night, Tyrone grew emotional and clingy. He cried and told Mackenzie that he loved her. He accused her of not appreciating him. This was all getting too much, so she sent a chilling text message to the other friend saying, "Don't leave me alone with him here, LOL." The lol tried to soften it, but she wasn't joking. At around 9:30 p.m, the other friend in the home convinced Tyrone to leave and took him out for a walk. This seemed like a good break in the tension, but Mackenzie knew that more was coming. By 10:10 p.m, Tyrone had climbed a ladder to her second-floor unit. He let himself back in. He now picked up Mackenzie's phone once again, this time to text her mother. He said, "I'm with her. She wants me to talk to you." When Mackenzie woke and realised that he was back inside, she now called the police. The day had already been clearly spiralling. By the time Mackenzie made her triple O call at 10:39 p.m, it seems that she tried everything else to get rid of him, but now she was out of her depth. She messaged a girlfriend earlier that night, and it read, "Tyrone came at me with a knife. He's still a freak." When Mackenzie got through to the triple O operator, she said, "My ex-boyfriend's broken in. I've woken up to him in my house, like I have an AVO on him." She was breathless, panicked, and obviously terrified. And in the background of the call, Tyrone could be heard saying, "Hang up, Mackenzie." But she didn't. Instead, she pushed back. She strongly said to him, "No, stay away from me, stay away from me." The police operator stayed on the line as Mackenzie explained that Tyrone had now taken her keys, that he'd come at her with a sharp implement, that there were normally 2 sharp kitchen implements, but only one of them could now be found in the house. He might still have it, she warned. Despite everything, she tried to stay calm. She tried to track where he went. Mackenzie texted her friend from earlier on, saying, "Tyrone's back." Little did anyone know this would be the last message she would ever send. The friend then ran back to the unit, and when he arrived at the front door, it wouldn't open. Something or someone was blocking it from the inside. He peered through a gap, and he saw Mackenzie lying on the floor. Tyrone was standing over her. He was plunging at her with a sharp implement, not saying a word. A neighbour watching from a balcony saw Mackenzie pressed against the window like she was trying desperately to escape. She heard Tyrone yelling, stab me again, you dog." But this wasn't a fight. It was more like an execution. Both of the sharp implements from the kitchen were being used, and one of them snapped from the force. Mackenzie suffered 78 wounds in under 2 minutes. Her time on this earth came to an end, with the phone still in her hand. Police arrived at 10:53 p.m, just 14 minutes after her phone call, but by then it was far too late. Tyrone was already screaming, "Help me, she's dead, help me, she's dead." He did have a cut on his hand, and he claimed that Mackenzie was the one that attacked him, and that he simply grabbed a sharp implement and then snapped. But his own words to police would betray him. He said, "I just stabbed, until she stopped." But somehow, things would get even more tragic. Even seasoned officers were shaken. When police arrived at Mackenzie's Mayfield apartment, they found her toddler son standing nearby. Thankfully, he was unharmed, but he was covered in a red that had leaked from his mother. Superintendent Wayne Humphrey later described the footage from body-worn cameras as horrendous. 4 ambulances were dispatched. A specialist care team tried everything to bring her back, but Mackenzie was already gone. Her body now lay just outside her unit. She had tried to escape. She had called for help, and she tried her best to survive. But in reality, she didn't stand a chance. A broken knife handle was found resting on her chest. She had deep markings to her face, neck, and body. It was clear that she fought to the end. Later, when Mother Tabitha visited the unit, it had already been cleaned, but she could still see everything. There was still a story of violence, she told the court. "I saw a path that led from the bedroom. You could tell she tried to escape." Her daughter's emails to advocacy groups were still open on her laptop. Messages asking for help with cameras, locks, and doors. Requests that were answered only after she was passed. One agency even sent a letter addressed to Mackenzie saying her case was being closed, the reason being that she had now passed away. Mother Tabitha told the court her death was no surprise, a death in slow motion. Tyrone Thompson hadn't even faced Mackenzie's family in person. He watched the sentencing over an audio-visual link from prison. He didn't speak, didn't apologize publicly, but the judge did read out a letter that he'd written. "No words can undo the pain. I never planned to hurt her that night. I would give anything to take that moment back." But Mackenzie's mother didn't buy it. She told the court, "The night I received the phone call that my daughter had been murdered, it was as if the world spun around me. My soul fractured. No sentence, she said, would ever undo that. In the weeks before her end, Mackenzie Anderson wasn't just scared, she was fighting. She had survived DV, she had beaten substance addiction, she fought mental health struggles, and was thriving as a single mother at age just 21. She had dreams, she had a smile that people described as sunshine, and she also had something important to say. Her social media was full of raw posts. She talked about recovery, saying, "I've been clean from ice for 3 years now. In fixing myself from being an addict is when I found out who I really was." She posted about parenting, how women were expected to do everything without praise, without breaks. And she posted about Tyrone. One caption read, "Highly embarrassing. I had a baby to someone like this." In a reply she added, "This is his friend group. Kill me." In another post she wrote, "I'm sick of losing my close friends to either substances or violence. This world has to change." Mackenzie didn't know that she would become one of the names that people mourned. Justice Richard Weinstein called Mackenzie's passing every parent's nightmare. He acknowledged the heartbreak of her family and the dark elements that Tyrone Thompson brought into her life. He described the attack as frenzied, as being so violent that one of the weapons broke from the force. He confirmed that Mackenzie had tried to leave the relationship, but Tyrone just refused to let her go. The Crown argued that the prior behaviour, the breach of the AVO, and the deliberate entry into her home should elevate the severity of the sentence. But the judge also took into account Tyrone's mental health diagnosis, which included complex PTSD and a severe personality disorder. His terrible upbringing and the maltreatment that he suffered at home, along with his time in isolation in Goulburn prison, were all cited as mitigating factors. And because Tyrone pleaded guilty just days before his trial, he received a 10% sentencing discount, and that discount would become the final insult. To Mackenzie's family, it wasn't justice. This was policy over people. Her mother later wrote, "We are hoping for a sentence that reflects the crime, but history has not shown us that this is the case all the time." The sentence was handed down, 22 years and 6 months, eligible for parole in 2038. To Tabitha, it felt like confirmation that the system still didn't understand the danger that women like her daughter were facing. She had one word for the outcome: outraged. In a final tribute, her mother asked the public to remember her, not by the violence that she suffered, but by her spirit. Have a dance, sing out loud. For her, life was worthy of celebration, she said. But the advocacy wouldn't end with Mackenzie's life. Mother Tabitha launched They Are Our Daughters, a platform for DV awareness and legal reform. She called for ankle monitoring for repeat offenders, for stronger parole restrictions, for national education on coercive control. Because if we really want change, she said, we need to get to the root of the problem. She hopes her daughter's voice will echo on, even if it took her passing to finally make people listen. On the day of the sentencing, Mackenzie's family, including her mother, sat in the Newcastle Supreme Court waiting for justice. However, instead, they found that he would be eligible for parole in 15 years and 6 months. When those words were read aloud, the devastated mother ran sobbing from the courtroom. She collapsed on the ground outside. Later, she spoke through tears to reporters. "We are outraged by today's outcome. We are disgusted that this sentence is what they think the value of my daughter's life was worth." Her words were sharp and deliberate.
Her mother, Tabitha Ackroyd, managed to summon the strength to speak after collapsing just outside the Newcastle courtroom.
He had violently assaulted my daughter for 2 years. He should not have been out of jail. Mackenzie's legacy will be one of action, of justice and of hope. And I call for this sentence to be appealed. Her voice was taken from her, but mine will not be silenced.
Justice Weinstein's sentence was an insult to women globally. "I call for an urgent appeal of this sentence," she said. She blamed the system, not just Tyrone. She said that Mackenzie's death wasn't a shock. It was a result of repeated, documented failures. She said Mackenzie did everything she could to try and keep safe, but she was constantly failed by the system. Mackenzie Anderson was far more than what was done to her. She was a mother, a daughter, a fighter. She saw the danger coming. She asked desperately for help, but in the end, she was forced to pay with her life. Just 16 days after Tyrone Thompson walked free, she was gone. So now Mackenzie's story becomes a rallying cry, not just for justice, but for change. Her mother continues that fight, and every time we say her name, we remind the world what was taken and what happens every single day. Justice was delayed, justice was reduced, but Mackenzie is not forgotten. Be careful out there, and I'll see you soon.